Hello, I'm Roy Loudon, and this is the story of how I made one of the many untold adventures of the Four Musketeers. It started in 1978, the high school graduation year of both me and my twin brother Roger. Only Roger was going to be spending his last semester in Malden, Massachusetts, so that he could march with the 27th Lancers Drum and Bugle Corps. Almost as soon as he left in March of '78, I borrowed the Super 8 camera from my high school film teacher. Along with friends who marched with Roger in the high school band, we made what we called the animation reel, just a bunch of different types of animation that we'd seen and wanted to do ourselves. Followed by, my dad works in a bowling alley. There was no script, just the idea of a man running for his life from 3 hitmen who stayed behind him by just walking, featuring the same cast of David Prong, Mike Anderson, and Randy Martinez. Even before the film was finished, I realized I didn't like improvisational filmmaking and wouldn't do one without a script again. I also realized I didn't like the format of Super 8, and that 16mm with sound was the next step. Along came graduation day, with Roger still being in Massachusetts. The plan was to move into the downstairs apartment of Grandma Moulton, our mom's mom. Originally, she wanted to send me to a film school, but I talked her into financing a film that I would produce myself. But first, it was time to take a bus trip to Denver, Colorado, to see Roger and the 27th Lancers perform in the finals and bring him home afterwards. While their performance received more applause from the audience than any of the other drum corps, they came in 7th place. We returned home to Dad in San Jose, only to quickly sort of leave the nest by moving to San Francisco into Grandma's downstairs apartment. We quickly came up with the idea of doing a Musketeer film. Our favorite film version of the Musketeers was the 1973 one with Michael York, Charlton Heston, and Christopher Lee. But along with its sequel, it told the same story as 13 other versions of the Musketeer novel. Ours was to be a different story, an untold story. Once again, it was to feature David, Mike, and Randy, along with Roger as Athos, the leader of the Musketeers. I started to draft out the sets and built scale models of them. Unfortunately, they are long lost. I also started designing the costumes, all based on my research of the 17th century. I also studied everything I could about filmmaking. I also built my own squib blood pack system for a scene. It always worked in the backyard, but it never worked properly when we were trying to film it. I made props, some of which I still have, and every now and then the gang would come up from San Jose to visit. We would test breakaway bottles and cut out materials for the costumes. Armed with Grandma's old sewing machine, I sewed together all the costumes. Roger and I continued making changes to the script, the old-fashioned way. I also drew storyboards for about half of the film, but as hard as we worked, it all took too long. Before we knew it, it was summer of 1980, and the gang was graduating from high school, getting ready to go off and do their own thing. We would have to continue on with a new cast. By then, our dad had moved from San Jose to Santa Cruz. He was getting to know a lot of people through the theater group he was involved with. His parents, Grandma and Grandpa Loudon, also had a house in Santa Cruz. It was beginning to make strategic sense that we should film in or around there. In Scotts Valley, in June of 1981, we found and rented the barn. It was the perfect size to build all my sets, one at a time. And while we weren't supposed to be staying there, we blacked it out from the inside so no one could see any lights at night. The barn had a serious problem though. The meter box for the power was missing. The groundskeeper had a good idea of who had it. A construction worker who rented another barn on the same property had salvaged it. When he brought the box back, he was quite interested in what we were up to, as he wanted to do both acting and stunt work. Just like that, out of the blue, James Bergen became our D'Artagnan. A friend of my dad's had a son who really wanted to pursue acting. He was only 16, but he was over 6 feet tall and had a lot of charisma. With the help of a mustache, a goatee, and some black hairspray, William Billy Menu became Porthos. From a play my dad was in at the time came Grant Bowen. Having the most acting experience and his own mustache already, we decided to make him Athos, the leader of the Musketeers. Roger was more than happy to switch mustaches to become the more comical Aramis. Before we were even ready to start filming, we had our Four Musketeers. I started building the village saloon as soon as the power was turned on. With magic markers and masking tape, I made standard paneling look like it was planks. At that time, we also solved another casting problem, with Bill's even younger brother, John, as Grimaud, the Musketeer's servant. My dad had some friends who also lived in Scotts Valley, on a rather large piece of property, where they allowed us to build our scrub village and film almost all our outdoor scenes. The first scene to be filmed was the tracking shot of Scrub Village. My assistant was Steve Capasso, who also played the scrub bartender. From there we went right into the taxman scenes. We were finally rolling. It was back and forth between the barn and the property for the next few months. With no plumbing in the barn, we rented a commode. We also had no telephone. We had to walk to Jim's barn just to make a call. Soon it was time to replace the bar set with the Cardinal's Palace. On the other side of this wall was the set for the Queen, played by Phyllis Hamlin. She was also from the theater group my dad was in. In the previous year, she represented Nevada in the Miss America pageant. The room was then painted yellow for the cardinal scenes, brilliantly played by Marcus Cato, also from the Bear Republic Theater. The cardinal set made for a great break room while I was in the palace setting up the next shot. In January 1982, a huge storm flooded much of the Bay Area, including my dad's house in Santa Cruz. It also washed out the roads to our outdoor filming area. It would be closed off to us for a couple of months. The only way to keep busy was to start filming the jail and Bastille scenes, but we weren't finished with the palace yet. So we snuck into the next barn over to build both the jail and Bastille sets. This barn had no power, but it was close enough to Jim's barn to use extension cords. The plan, and Jeff Marigold as the prisoner, worked out perfectly. Winter turned to spring, and the roads reopened. We were back in business. By this time, we were much more organized and far more productive than the previous year. We had to make up for lost time and finish several scenes that were started a few months earlier. One of the most enjoyable days for everybody was the horse riding scenes. We rented 5 horses from a place that had their own trails and spent the whole day there. Mike Murray, who played the leader of the Cardinal's Guards, knew a lot about horses and helped make the day go quite smoothly. I, on the other hand, had to carry a heavy camera all over the place. Another enjoyable field trip was to the land of Boomeria, a unique place on private property with a miniature castle and underground catacombs. It was the perfect place for D'Artagnan and Grimaud to find the treasure. Finally came the last week of filming. We shot the Aramis fight scene in the fog and the fight scenes with the Cardinal's Guards. The shot of D'Artagnan swinging on a rope to kick my character into the well required a low angle. While Bill was testing the rope for Jim to swing on, the branch broke and crashed to the ground, nearly missing Bill and myself. All we did was look back up into the tree to find another branch to tie the rope to. The last shot to be filmed was Aramis being captured in the box, which fell apart as soon as the camera was turned off. Roger jumped into the pool and we packed everything up. Roger decided to stay in Santa Cruz to pursue his music. I returned to San Francisco to start the editing. Bill came up to San Francisco for a couple of weeks, mainly to help me record sound effects, such as the punches, me slapping the waterbed with a yardstick while Bill was punching a hassock.
Ready? Start again.
Editing went on through the entire summer of 1982. Finally, in September, the final print was struck. After I moved down to Hollywood in 1983, I had a film transfer done, resulting in a horrible video copy that we had to live with for 32 years.
Without making a shambles of the place, Omar was eyes with a magic trick and pickpocket the magic.
In 2014, I finally had a high-definition digital transfer made of the film, and I rebuilt all the sound from the original reel-to-reel recordings.
Simple handkerchief. I simply place it over my hand, and something will mysteriously appear. Voila! Let's go.
So there's the story of 4 years and 4 Musketeers told in under 15 minutes. And even though not much became of it, I had the tremendous satisfaction of setting out to do it and doing it. I am grateful to everyone involved in making it happen. Thank you.